Right now, somewhere in the world, two people are kissing. On a first date, in an airport, in a hospital corridor, on a street corner, at midnight. You've done it yourself probably more times than you can count. It feels completely natural. It feels human. But here's the thing, it isn't universal, not even close. And when you start pulling on that thread, the whole story of where kissing actually comes from unravels into something far stranger and far older than anyone expected. Because the kiss didn't start as romance. It didn't start as affection. And depending on which theory turns out to be right, it either started as something deeply practical, something almost animal, or something so ancient it predates the human face entirely. Let's start with the fact that blows most people's minds immediately. Kissing is not a human universal. When researchers William Jankowiak, Mark Volsche, and Justin Garcia published a study in 2015 after reviewing ethnographic data from 168 cultures around the world, they found that only 46% of those cultures practice romantic or sexual kissing at all. In North America and Europe, the assumption is total, of course, humans kiss. Everyone kisses. It's obvious. But in large parts of sub-Saharan Africa, Central America, and indigenous communities across multiple continents, the romantic kiss simply doesn't exist as a cultural practice. When European explorers first arrived in those regions and kissed in public, local populations described it as disgusting. One account from a 19th century observer described indigenous people watching two Europeans kiss and reacting with visible revulsion, asking why anyone would want to share the contents of another person's mouth, which raises an immediate problem. If kissing isn't universal, it can't be purely instinctual. Something caused it to develop in some places and not others. And that something turns out to be much older and much stranger than the romantic explanations most people assume. The oldest theory, and still one of the most scientifically credible, is called premastication. Before commercial baby food, before blenders, before any form of food processing technology existed, human mothers faced a biological problem. Infants cannot chew solid food. But solid food, specifically protein-rich meat and dense carbohydrates, is exactly what growing human brains need most urgently. The solution that appears consistently across human and primate populations throughout history was direct mouth-to-mouth food transfer. A mother would chew food until it was soft enough for an infant to swallow, then pass it directly from her mouth to the child's. This behavior has been documented in chimpanzees, bonobos, and gorillas. It appears in ethnographic records from multiple human cultures across Africa, the Pacific Islands, and South America. Evolutionary biologist Von Bell and others have argued that the intimate mouth contact required for premastication, the physical closeness, the lip contact, the transfer of warmth and sensation, may have laid the neurological groundwork for the association between mouth contact and emotional bonding that eventually became what we recognize as kissing. But there's a second theory that runs parallel to the first, and it comes from a completely different direction. In 2015, Raphael Lodarsky at the University of Oxford published research suggesting that kissing functions primarily as a biological assessment mechanism. When two people kiss, they exchange an enormous amount of chemical information. Saliva contains cortisol, testosterone, estrogen, and a range of immune markers that provide detailed data about the other person's stress levels, hormonal state, and genetic compatibility. Research on major histocompatibility complex, the immune system gene cluster, has found that people are generally more attracted to partners whose MHC profile differs significantly from their own, which produces offspring with broader immune coverage. And they can detect that difference through smell and through direct chemical contact during kissing. In this framework, the romantic kiss isn't primarily about affection at all. It's a biological test. Your body is running an immune compatibility analysis on the other person and delivering the results as a feeling. The oldest physical evidence of anything resembling kissing in the human record was pushed back dramatically in 2023 when researchers Troels Arbel and Sophie Lund Rasmussen published a study in Science analyzing cuneiform tablets from ancient Mesopotamia dating to approximately 2500 BCE. The tablets described kissing explicitly in both romantic and sexual contexts, pushing the confirmed written record back by at least 1,000 years beyond what had previously been documented. But the researchers were careful to note something important. The tablets didn't describe kissing as a new invention or a cultural innovation. They described it as an existing, already established practice being documented in writing for the first time, which means the actual origin of kissing predates even the oldest written records of it. In ancient India, the Vedic Sanskrit text known as the Rig Veda, dating to somewhere between 1,500 and 1,200 BCE, contained passages describing people pressing their mouths together in a way that most scholars interpret as kissing. The Kama Sutra, compiled around 400 CE, but drawing on traditions that predate the written text by centuries, dedicates entire chapters to the classification of different types of kisses, categorized by duration, pressure, location on the body, and emotional intention. There are at least 30 distinct varieties described in detail. By the time anyone thought to write about kissing, there was already enough accumulated cultural knowledge about it to fill a taxonomy. Then there is the question of what kissing does to the brain, because the neurological response is anything but simple. A kiss activates the orbitofrontal cortex, the region involved in reward and decision-making. It triggers the release of oxytocin, the bonding hormone associated with trust and attachment. It produces a dopamine response similar in mechanism, though not in magnitude, to other reward-seeking behaviors. It suppresses cortisol, measurably reducing stress. Research from 2009 by Wendy Hill at Lafayette College found that after a kissing session, cortisol levels drop significantly in both men and women, with the effect being more pronounced in environments that were already relaxed and intimate. The body treats kissing as a genuine stress reduction event, not just a pleasant sensation. Here's something that almost no one talks about. Kissing is one of the most neurologically expensive things humans do routinely. The lips contain more nerve endings per square centimeter than almost any other surface of the human body. The face receives motor commands from 5 of the 12 cranial nerves simultaneously during a kiss. The brain devotes a disproportionately large region of the sensory cortex to processing information from the lips relative to their actual physical size. Neuroscientist Cheryl Kirschenbaum, who spent years researching the science of kissing, has described the human lip as one of the most sophisticated sensory instruments in the animal kingdom, capable of detecting temperature, texture, pressure, and chemical information simultaneously at a level of precision that almost nothing else in the body matches. Here is the full picture. Somewhere between 2 and 10 million years ago, primate mothers were pressing their mouths against their infants to transfer food, laying down the neurological association between mouth, contact, and safety and nourishment. By the time modern humans emerged, that association had been running for millions of generations. By 2500 BCE, people were writing about kissing in clay tablets as an already established part of intimate life. By 400 CE, there was enough accumulated knowledge about it to require a 30-category classification system. Today, 46% of all human cultures practice it romantically, and the ones that don't still use mouth contact in other intimate contexts, suggesting the underlying behavior is universal even if the romantic expression of it is not. So the next time you kiss someone, what you are doing is running a 10-million-year-old biological assessment, releasing a cascade of neurochemicals that your brain has been primed to respond to since before you were born, and continuing a behavior that your ancestors were practicing before anyone on Earth knew how to write it down. The cup got fancier, the context changed, but the impulse, the press of one mouth against another, the information exchanged in that fraction of a second, is the same one that started on a forest floor millions of years before the first word for it existed.